in the waiting room?
She's there.
Okay,
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
I can hear you, can't see you yet. You have power?
That's the issue, and I am wondering if perhaps I ought to try to dial in again. I am on backup right now here at home, so let me see if I
Would it
can.
work better for you if we did this another time, or do you want to just do it on your phone?
If you don't mind terribly, I'd like to dial in one more time, and I really would like to uh, get this off your plate.
Okay,
So let me see if I can get the video back by dialing in again.
so Randy, is it not as bad up in Swanton?
It wasn't snowing. In fact, driving down today, roads were basically clear. Well, Swanton had some problems, Swanton to Georgia. But from Georgia to Waterbury was fine.
You got through the Bolton Flats?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was a little greasy,
Yeah.
but not bad. But it really got bad once you got to just before Waterbury.
It was not fun here driving.
Yeah, and it was a big change, so.
Yeah. Okay, we're waiting for the commissioner who has no power to see if she can.
But I noticed, really hasn't been snowing. It's supposed to be snowing all day.
Well, we had got an email from the chief who said, this is like the eye of the storm, I gather, that it is going to start snowing and the wind is picking up to 35 miles an hour, which means many of us won't have power tonight either.
More powder this morning than I expected. It wasn't wet snow, it was powder.
Oh, my bushes. Okay, June is with us, or her name is up.
It looks like she doesn't have sound or video.
She doesn't have sound or video at the moment.
Let's try this one more time.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay, we can indeed hear me, Madam
Ah,
Chair.
there you
Oh,
are.
there I
With
am.
your
Look at that.
snuffles. Okay.
Success. If I talk quickly, as I did as a spread debater in high school,
Well, that-
perhaps the battery pack might last just long enough for this
Okay,
thing.
well, Senator Brock and I were just noticing that this is the first time we've done this without a certain visitor filming, so.
Oh, my word, if you can stand it. I'm pleased to be here again in front of the committee. I would note that this is I think my fourth confirmation hearing with you folks. There are some of your colleagues who have only recently started working with me on this committee, and so Senators Chittenden and Rom Hinsdale. I don't want to overstate things here, but let me just say that this has been a very vigorous relationship with this committee over the years. But as is the case in any real relationship that is founded on respect, you do sometimes run into those thorny things because you're all bringing your best efforts to bear. And that is certainly what I do in my work. And so when I say to you that it's a pleasure to be with you here today, I mean that with all sincerity. It really is, because in preparing for the hearing, I've looked back on the body of work that we've been doing together over these years. And if I left state government today, there's great pride that I would take with me in having been part of this work that you have done and that I have been implementing. And I look forward to doing another 2 years if that is your judgment. So what I'd like to do very briefly today is go over some of the things that I think are accomplishments that I look back on with great pride. And then I'd like to foreshadow a little bit some of the things I have in mind for the next 2 years. You'll find that in the accomplishments I draw out, I really am pointing to 3 themes of my tenure. One has been the faithful implementation of the law, both as written and then as best I can interpret when I don't have the benefit of clarity in the law, which is often the case, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's precisely why it's so important that you have confidence in the people that the governor appoints to these offices, because we are called upon to exercise judgment and discretion in implementing the law. There's also federal funding, a lot of federal funding that has to be administered. And then finally, there are the efforts that I am undertaking along with many people, to bring a focus on equity in our work in a way that perhaps it has never overtly been done before in public policy. So, with those three themes in mind, I would just point first to things that have been accomplished in the category of implementing the law. You will recall, Madam Chair and other long tenured members of the committee, that during the pandemic, the department was called upon to do any number of things that it had never done before. The two things that stand out that I take particular pride in is the utility arrearages work that we did to make sure that Vermonters continued to have access to utility services during the pandemic, and that the finances of our utilities were not undermined by the difficulties that people were running into. The department had never before been responsible for standing up and administering essentially a benefits program, but we did it, and we did it in rapid order and with great success, so much so that the program that we've been administering, to my knowledge, has already been extended twice when we would have expected to wind it down, because it was effective in reaching over tens of thousands of Vermonters in affording them relief that they needed and making sure that our utilities were healthy through the pandemic. The other part of the work that we did during the pandemic that I am very, very proud of is not just the accelerated deployment of broadband infrastructure, but also the data gathering that had to be done, the outreach to Vermonters in order to figure out in very short order where to target that aid. And that is work that really could not have been done without the excellent working relationship that this committee had with the department and your corresponding committee in the House as well. I look back on those days and how much time we spent on Zoom hammering this out, and judgment calls that had to be made in the heat of the moment. And I just think, it's amazing. There's so much that we got right. And I'm so very proud to have had a hand in that. And we'll always look back on that with great joy, frankly. Um, an outgrowth of that work in that period, again, was implementing Act 71, the law that created the Vermont Community Broadband Board. That was a real act of faith that you invested in me when you created Act 71, and looked to me to embed the VCBB in the agency, but to not intrude on their separateness, their independence in decision making. And I believe if you speak with Director Hallquist and others on the board of the VCBB, you will have confirmed that that I have done that well, not perfectly, but certainly no effort's been spared to do the mission and to do it right. And I think the outgrowth of that is visible today, in that already services reaching some Vermonters and an excellent foundation is being laid to carry out the work of the CUDs. We also, at the same time as doing this groundbreaking work, both during the pandemic and standing up the VCBB, the department also fully participated in the Climate Council and the preparation of the Climate Action Plan. And that was a very, very heavy lift for my agency, because we had to do that with no additional resources. And in tandem with doing the work on the Climate Action Plan, also we had to complete the Comprehensive Energy Plan. So these are things that I could not have done without the capable staff that I have at the department. And to be clear, I didn't do it. I did set the direction. I did make judgment calls about where to put resources. And I also mentored staff. But the point is that the department got it done. And to the extent that you hold me accountable for what the department does in implementing the law, that is work that I look back on with great pride. Moving to the federal funding category, just as well as I do, we've had tidal waves of federal funding, beginning with the Corona Relief Fund, going on to the ARPA funding, then IIJA and IRA funding coming at us. There is a lot of work to be done in that arena, and I fully expect to have my hands full with that. But as we do that work, we are keeping a focus on equity, just as we did with the implementation portion I talked about, in trying to make sure that the most vulnerable of Vermonters were not without utility services. As we transition to using the ARPA funding and the IIJA funding, and then eventually the IRA funding to good effect, we are at the department looking at decarbonization and how to design programs that can help people participate in that transition. And so with many of the statutory mandates that this committee has had a big hand in shaping, as well as the Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee and your corresponding committees in the House, the department has been very hard at work on a load management program, meaning helping folks get devices and also our utilities in setting up their systems to manage load to best effect for Vermont. Also, affordable community scale renewable energy. Also, we've been managing the funding that's been allocated to the Clean Energy Development Board for these purposes. We've also been administering grants for Efficiency Vermont for weatherization, where the focus is on both low income and also middle income weatherization. We've also been administering grant funding for Efficiency Vermont to help with workforce development and also designing a program for grid modernization work that is connected to the load management piece I was talking about. And then also looking to deploy weatherization middle income incentives in Vermont. In the space of equity alone, the department has been very intent on designing a public engagement process that raises up the voices of Vermonters as we develop clean and renewable electricity policy. And this is a follow-on to the work that we did in the Comprehensive Energy Plan, where we laid out the need to do that. It's not enough for state government to design a policy and then say to people, what do you think of this? What we're trying to do, and I don't pretend that we have mastered the art, but what we are trying to do is go to Vermonters and say, hey, what do you think needs to be in this policy? And then we go and design it and then go back to them and say, well, what do you think of it? So to that end, we've had multiple public education workshops we've convened both in the evening and daytime, where we've tried to reach people and just explain the basics of things like where your electricity comes from, to what degree it has carbon in it, and what the plans are for decarbonizing it. And we've also been budgeting this year for deliberative polling outreach, which is a new way of trying to reach folks and get their opinions on how to shape policy. We've also been hard at work in implementing Act 154, the environmental justice legislation that was passed last year, and are making a very concerted effort to incorporate equity as a core decision-making criteria in the advocacy that we undertake and the policy design that we do at the department. What I point to there as the most concrete action is we've actually created a data and equity policy manager position at the department that's new. And that person is responsible for making sure that we are devising systems to collect the data that we need in order to account for equity considerations in our policy development. But also this person is front and center in our conversations in the department to help us focus or make sure that we apply an equity lens to our thinking as we develop policy. We've also initiated an extensive public stakeholder engagement program to update our commercial and residential building energy standards so that what we have today, and this will be coming before LCAR before long, I think, for the revised or the most recent update of the RBs and CB standards, is the product of engagement as never before with the public. Finally, I think you're probably aware our work on mobile wireless cell coverage continues as well, because the state of wireless service continues to be inequitable, in my opinion. In Vermont, there are places that you still can't use your cell phone reliably. And it is unfortunately no surprise that a lot of those areas are in rural communities where we have some of the most economically challenged circumstances in the state. So this year we are back with a $10 million proposal to have community-based siting of towers in the hopes that we can have devise and use a process for closing some of those gaps in the state that there's no business case for and that private capital simply won't invest in. Transitioning now to my goals for the coming period. I will continue to direct the department in pursuing things like IIJA funding and IRA funding The most recent example of that is the work that we did in late December and early January to meet what were just impossible Department of Energy deadlines for filing grant applications in support of the TDI New England Clean Energy PowerLink project that I'm sure many of you remember from several years ago. It's been dead declared dead twice and brought back to life. It's back again, and I think it's got an excellent chance this time at DOE. That's to draw down funding, grant funding to support that project. So we're hard at work on that sort of thing. The State Energy Office that is embedded at the department is something like a chia pet with all this federal funding coming out. It's come back to life as well. And we are organizing ourselves around pursuing those funding opportunities. We're also undertaking very vigorous advocacy in the region through NESCO, the New England States Committee on Electricity, that we are part of in helping the ISO New England run our grid in the region. And that advocacy has been front and center on winter fuel security and resiliency. Days like today are days that I spend half in prayer because we have a good system. We have weather that is changing on us, and our system needs to adapt to that. And it's a work in progress. And so all of the things that are affecting us here in the state of Vermont are affecting other states in the region as well. And ISO New England is finding itself challenged as well in making sure that we have adequate powers and infrastructure in the region to stabilize our grid during these difficult circumstances, which include increasingly also challenges like the war in Ukraine and the effects that has on energy markets and the world, really. I also look forward to continuing the engagement with the Climate Council. There is a plan, and I think it represents the best thinking of the council members collectively. It has its issues, of course, and there are still a couple of components that require a lot of work, one of which is the council recommendation to the legislature that there be a clean heat standard. I won't go into the details of that because, as you all know, that is under discussion in your very circles. But I will make to you the commitment that, as I said at the top, faithful implementation of the law is a priority, has always been a priority for this commissioner. And should that become law, the clean heat standard, a good deal of that work will fall to the department in front of the PUC, as well as in devising the mechanisms by which some of those program elements of the standard are administered, much like we do in the energy efficiency world, and also with the res credits administration programs. Finally, we have a telecom plan that is once again getting ginned up and ready to be worked on. I've just yesterday onboarded our new telecom director, Hunter Thompson, and look forward to embarking on that planning work and making sure that it integrates well with Act 71 and the work of the VCBB. I also expect to continue to advocate for expanding self-service. And frankly, I also am very conscious now of preparing the next generation of regulators. You may have noticed that I have been sending more policy experts into the legislature to testify in committees, and that's a very conscious decision on my part, because one of the legacies that I'd like to look back on is that just as there were folks who trained me up and brought me along 20 years ago when I first started doing this work, I'd like to think that when I walk out the door someday, there will be a core of folks who feel that they have the requisite chops, policy-wise and relationship-wise, in the legislature to continue to serve the people of Vermont well. And Madam Chair, with that, that concludes my testimony. And if there are questions from the committee, I'm happy to answer as best as I can.
My first question is, do you have a summary of, or any copy you can send of what you just gave us? Because
Yes.
I've got several pages of notes, but I'm not sure I'm going to remember how to interpret them in a couple of days. So anything you can send over along with a brief bio. I think I remember a good part of it from 2 years ago, but this is impressive. So
I certainly can.
Any questions for the commissioner?
Sorry if I missed this, but
is there one equity metric that you're really proud of having changed? A gap you closed or a change in the diversity of your staff, something tangible?
That is a really good question. And I think I am mortified to have to tell you now. I cannot say that that's the case, which isn't to say that we haven't sought to attract new colleagues who would help us with such a metric. But I cannot say that we have succeeded so far. So the will is there, the pursuit is there, but the results are not there.
Is there a metric you're looking at as a goal?
I'll be honest with you, Senator Hinsdale, I am not. I get a little uncomfortable here, and I probably need better education from HR, meaning I need to work this out with HR, because it's not that I and my staff don't think about how to diversify our staff. It's that it gets uncomfortable talking about these things overtly, what those metrics would look like. But if you have suggestions, I'm certainly happy to hear about that.
Okay, well, and that was an example, like it could be a gap you want to close as, people who are better connected, or, I mean, UVM has tracked information, for example, that people of color are 7 times more likely to choose between food and electricity, things like that.
I see. Okay.
Like
yeah, I'm sorry.
Any metric that sticks out to you as one you'd like to address.
Oh, thank you. I think I misunderstood your question to begin with. I thought you were talking about hiring practices.
That was illuminating anyway, but.
Okay. And that's where I was embracing my failure fiercely, that we have tried, but and not succeeded. As I look back on it in our body of work, we have focused on the equities of net metering, and some of the groundbreaking work that we did there was in ascertaining where the subsidies in utility territories are going, meaning who is getting the most benefit from these programs, or was in recent years. And that was partly at the root of our advocacy to bring net metering rates down. It's twofold, really. One, because if, let's just say, for example, that net metering is more likely to happen in parts of a service territory where the median income is very high, that means that other folks in that territory are subsidizing that. And that isn't necessarily per se a bad thing, because net metering serves our decarbonization goals for sure. But there is an equity issue there, and that is that data that had to be mined, if you will. And the department has certainly done that on our watch. The advocacy itself to bring rates down, I think I can't claim that that's completely a function of closing that gap, if you will, with our data. But it has certainly contributed to that. The bigger picture here is that net metering rates need to be, or to put it differently, electricity needs to be priced such that people can afford to electrify, which includes, folks who are of modest means. And so building seeking to close that gap, if you will, between folks who can afford the energy transition and folks who can. That work begins with understanding the data, and that's what we've been mining. So I'm not sure I'm directly answering your question. I can't point to one specific measure in a metric, but perhaps that gives you a better sense of how equity is part of our consciousness, if you will, in our trying to further that work.
Yeah. I won't belabor it. I'll just say a couple things. One could be a metric where you ask people how knowledgeable they are about your work, or ways to save, et cetera, and see if there's disparities between, different income levels or people of color, et cetera. And another thing on hiring is to look at your applicant pool, not necessarily, and just say, okay, how can we make sure that 10 or 20% of our applicant pool identifies as an underrepresented group in the department right now?
Quite so.
You might have a metric in the future.
Quite so. I think if you are open to it, what I would recommend is that I put you in touch with Claire McElveny, our equity data manager, the position I was alluding to, because Claire may well watch this tape later and be more right at my answer, in that she would say, well, Commissioner, if only you had had the presence of mind to say this to Senator Ram Hinsdale. So, but I take your point. That's very helpful. And as for the applicant pool, I will I will spare no effort to make that happen for sure. It's just at the end of the day, in our particular world, the knowledge base, it's not a unique story, and it's not an explanation or an excuse either. It's something that has to change.
Okay, other questions? Thank you. This is one of the more copacetic interviews we've done for your position, not necessarily for you. But thank you. I expect to hear from us in a few days, and if you can get, just that list, so I don't get something wrong, depending on my memory and my notes, that would be very helpful.
My pleasure, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So committee, what is your pleasure with this one?
To vote. Positively.
Yeah, I think that's Senator Gray.
I overmove that the committee confirm the appointment of June Tierney as as Commissioner for the Department of Service.
I think it's recommended that the Senate.
Recommended the Senate. Thank you. I knew there was some little twist.
I thought we don't do it on our own.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
I just say, Commissioner Tierney was my neighbor for many years. He was in Randolph. We are friends. We have often disagreed on issues, but I have at times thought she was wrong on a particular issue. I've never thought she was irrational or unfair. It's the way in which people who like and respect one another disagree. And I think she'll continue.
We don't always agree, but when we've disagreed, dealing with this commissioner has been easier than some others. So if not, I don't know if we're gonna call the roll for this. Just say all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. I'm calling that 7-0-0, and I will report it just because she's a commissioner. And as soon as we get, I guess there's a slip there I'll take up, or they'll come down for at the end of the day. And we've got one out of the way. We have 15 minutes, 10 minutes until the city of Barry shows up. So maybe, I'm afraid to let you go because you won't come back. But maybe the other thing we've got the Medicare fertility rate, and Emran's just going to give us a brief overview of what other states have done. But I think for right now, that was not going anywhere. Agricultural subjects tomorrow has become much more complicated. Seems that the proposal from the Ag Department that would not allow wastewater discharge fees to be charged to anything agricultural is putting some major dents in some communities. So that one is not going to be, oh, there's a hidden fee in the underlying bill and we're going to vote it out.
Madam Chair, on that one, have we scheduled any folks from the MS4 communities? I mean, that's why I'm getting from.
The
MS4 is in municipal, multiple sewer, I'm forgetting all my four Ms.
Okay, yeah, you've got whole utility districts.
We have like
Yeah.
16, I think.
We'll get the names to Jill. And we may be here later on next Wednesday to get through that, but get names for anyone.
Burlington, South Burlington, the
Okay, yeah.
airport.
I know you guys got a wastewater utility, so.
Just don't
You know,
send us
okay.
sewer system.
So get them all in, and won't be the first time we haven't agreed with Thunderstar.
Well, you know, to just tee it up there, so there are assessments on properties based on their contribution to stormwater, and managing stormwater. And if ag becomes exempt, then a fewer number of users who are contributing to the challenge of managing that water bear a higher cost.
Yeah.
And there is the ironic side of things, maybe that farmland can, by virtue of its size, run off during periods of no crops, like that, be an outside contributor.
As long as we don't have to go to tile drains.
Oh, don't worry, what comes out of a towel can, although it looks like water coming out of a pipe, is not actually a discharge.
I just remember that was the last ag bill in here that we got literally took a lot of fast learning curve.
It's on your table, that's fine now.
Okay, the one thing I think we're gonna do local options, and I think we're probably gonna put the fix for Colchester on there. South Hero. The one I'm not sure what we're gonna do, and I'm trying to get everything out this week. And this one is ours. It's Hartford's tax increment financing district. And the thing that's making me hesitate there is that this is setting a precedent. This will be the first time we've done a second extension. And if we start doing second and then third extensions, what we do, because we have a limit on the number of TIFs we can have, is we stop other communities, we limit their ability to do a TIF. So that one, I'm not sure what we're gonna do. I haven't got a read from you all, but think about it and let me know.
How long was the first extension?
3 years, I believe.
So they'll do another extension, just extend it when they already gave.
It's very, that's very, yes. Same difference. So anyway, just think about that.
I'm sure I would say in terms of the setting a precedent, is that this really is, if not a unique situation, it is an unusual one because of the pandemic.
Well, every TIF had the pandemic, so.
But unless we have another, first of all, from now on, we should probably anticipate the possibility of something like the pandemic, of something making it
Well,
impossible to do something that they promised to do in good faith. And that they were not negligent, their inability to keep the promise was not negligent. And something very big happened to them. And maybe we should frame the future TIFs that way.
if there are.
Yeah. But you're saying something like if
Yeah.
something like the pandemic happens, sorry, you're on your
Well,
own.
that's why,
Or-
there was an extension in there in the first place.
Yeah.
To account for, and everybody got a 1-year extension because of COVID. So Hartford got a 3-year extension, so they're already ahead of, 2 years ahead of everybody else. So,
I've already spoken in favor of this, but I'll just do it one more time. And I feel like this is somewhat more unique because in my experience with TIFs, when the pandemic happened, this even more disproportionately affected a lot of the major development initiatives. And why I'm still comfortable with it is I just see the power of TIF, and at the end of it, the state still benefits from the increased grand list. So it'll increase the grand list, and then it's not
they
like
had impressive numbers.
we don't benefit in the long term. So
They
Delayed
did have,
gratification.
delayed gratification.
Yes.
I'm still supportive.
middle class value.
A couple things to this bill, and then I just want to flag something on the agenda.
Okay.
For this, I think it speaks to the need to move to project-based TIFs and not sort of open up the queue so another town can do a huge project that might be too large of an undertaking, but start to just change the program. Let, the ones run their course that have that are trying to get through the pandemic and still keep up promises on a very large scale in their downtowns and growth centers and, you know, centers of town. But then to me, the project-based TIF looks even more appealing because it's not a community biting off more that they can shoot with a lot of, I think, future disruptions. You know, I don't think a pandemic is the last we've seen of like a weather event or a economic event that makes it hard to keep a huge promise, but makes it easier to take a bite with this kind of financing. I just want to flag that I feel like the one responsible for why Ameren's coming in at 3 o'clock on S63 and Senator Bray and I are due in the pro tem's office. And I wonder if I could just talk to Ameren. It was my question.
Well,
And then
that,
people can get out earlier and go home.
well, some of us have a chairs meeting, I believe.
Right.
That's that, 4:30.
Mm-hmm.
4:30, but
Still says 4:30. That's true. I mean, I was thinking of Randy, but he'll.
yeah, I just, well, just.
Maybe he could do it remotely, because some people are.
That's today. Well, that, I wish I'd known because.
I wish I, it's just crossover week.
We're gonna, yeah, it's crossover week and I'm trying to get a couple, I could try, well, we're having trouble, there's a public utility and I don't know what natural resources is put in that bill. But if we don't get it out of here on Friday, we're in trouble.
Right. Does it make sense?
Which one?
The miscellaneous subjects, the Public Utility Commission.
Yeah, so that is PUC's housekeeping bill.
Okay,
And
if it's truly housekeeping, then we're probably in good shape.
there's a little bit of controversy over a procedural change, but I think, and I've had people approach me with an additional requested change, and I said, let me see how it goes, because we're all undergun, and maybe the best thing to do is wait and bring that to the House.
Okay, well, just
I'm trying to.
take a look at who's on the agenda and make sure we get who needs to be here. Okay, and we'll do that. And then we can go forward. Is any chance, well, we're waiting for who? Tucker?
Can I take one?
City Larry? Karen? Who's the drafter on that? No, that would be Becky Wasserman.
Right. She's on for this 35.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if Becky is available to listen in, and hopefully they will be here right on time.
So do you want to cancel the 3 o'clock or keep it? It's totally up to you.
I think we scheduled it.
Okay. We'll be here for the first 5 minutes.
And Ameren, evidently, I need to speak to the pro tem.
We also do.
Do a committee announcement.
Yeah.
I have approval from the chair that this Friday at 3 p.m. I'll be putting the University of Vermont men's basketball game up on this screen with no sound, so we can watch it in the background while we continue our committee.
And this will
deliberations.
definitely help us get through the PUC.
Are they playing Syracuse or something?
Marquette in the March Madness.
And next we'll do girls hockey.
Okay.
I went to my first elementary school wrestling match this weekend. Boys, girls, 3 separate rings. It was interesting.
Can I offer some ideas for what this is on one college?
Yeah, just give them to Joe.
Okay.
And if there's any you think might not be,
Well, for instance, PUC's on it, I think probably.
They couldn't come in till Tuesday. I'll see if
They
they can come
couldn't
in
be
Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay.
that's right, we have another, that isn't out, you sent that now, so we have next week to do that too.
Okay, that was part of my, I was gonna ask Secretary Bloomer if this bill is treated as, this is the community jurisdiction, and therefore it is like a policy bill out of any community jurisdiction, or it's actually for finance, it's not here under Rule 31. That's why I wonder if we have any extra time.
Yeah, I think it's not a bill that originated here. You voted it out and it got sent here, so we have an extra week to deal with those other bills. We have to clear that, anything we're gonna clear off that board. Well, we keep adding to it, but the bills that came to us originally have to be out this week.
So I'm gonna ask Secretary Blumer that there's no end to the little nuances he adds to things when I ask about rules. So I just wanna make sure that he's not gonna, that it, and it's fine if we do, rules could always address it. But I don't know that he's, with this one, getting treated as a money committee bill. It may be that we have it because of the PUC, so we're a policy committee.
Oh, I don't think it's anything, because we regulate utilities, and I assume, it's one of those co-jurisdiction things, but it was sent to us by another committee, and my understanding is we have a week to deal with those, because they frequently don't come out until this Friday, which maybe childcare will come out on Thursday, but that's gonna be either a big or little one next week. We just have to find somewhere around $100 million.
Not sure. I'll talk to the very tall lawyer who's, because it was sent directly to us. It didn't get
Right.
referred from our committee to here. It came directly here.
It came directly here?
Yeah.
Then we do need to get it out on Friday.
And that's what I'm thinking. It's actually came to us as a policy committee, not as a Rule
Okay.
31.
I thought this came from your committee.
No, referred right to you. Right.
So the PUC is the proposer of this.
Yes.
Okay, so you need to tell the PUC that if they want this bill, they need to be in here this week.
And I was, okay, so I'll talk to Jill.
Yeah.
Another,
I thought this got referred from you.
no, it was directed from the podium right here.
Okay.
That's why I was asking.
This
I don't
is,
want to.
there's been so many things moving around
Yeah.
like that in the past week. That one I missed. All right, so we will,
So I'll go double check, but I think that's.
no, I think, no,
that's
you're
okay.
right. If you didn't vote it out, then it came directly here,
Yeah.
1 week before crossover.
Well, I don't know exactly when it came through, but
It just came through. Because we've been clearing the board, at least going through initially on everything.
Based on the bill number it was recently introduced.
Yeah,
and I actually thought it might go to our committee, and therefore I thought like, oh, well, if we're the ones, I work for the PC to put it in as a house bill. I thought actually it's gonna be referred to our committee, and it's like, okay, so the timing
Okay, so
isn't
we'll
timing,
take that
but since I was doing that work, I thought like, okay, we will figure out a way to get it done.
things have been strange and things, I mean, usually I would do the insurance bill in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the session just to fill time while bills got drafted and worked on in other committees. And we did not get that. We took testimony before we had a final draft. And I will be putting in an amendment. I have to do it, but I'd like to say you all approve. It changes a reference from VSA 8 to VSA 9, or 8 VSA to 9, or vice versa. It's one of those reference things that Maria caught. I took it up. The secretary thought he might be able to deal with it as a Scrivener's error, but I set the thing up. I thought it might come up today. But I didn't get it in time, so I don't think I'm going over your heads on anything that you don't know about. Have we got Barry on the line? Let's get Barry up then. There's everybody. Can you hear us? welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you.
Painted your city council room.
Yes.
Yes.
I was gonna say, it looks brighter and cheerier than the last time I was there. So why don't you introduce yourself for the committee, and I think we'll have the committee introduce themselves to you. So we'll start with you.
Okay. Most of you know me. I'm Carol Dawes. I'm the Berry City Clerk and Treasurer.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm the new city manager of Berry City, Nicholas Torelli Castro.
Okay, and Senator McCormick, why don't we start with you?
Hi, I'm Dick McCormick. I represent the Windsor County Senate District. And I've been on this committee many years ago and now returned.
Okay, Senator Bray has stepped out. Senator.
Hi, Keisha Rum, Hinsdale, Chittenden, Southeast. I know Carol very well from my time on GovOps, but it's nice to meet you, Nicholas.
Nice to meet you.
Senator Mark McDonald, your neighbor to the south from Williamstown. I represent Orange County.
Tom Chittenden, I represent Chittenden Southeast. Nice to meet you both.
I'm Senator Randy Brock. I represent Franklin County and a little bit of Grand Isle County.
And I'm Ann Cummings, and I'm all yours. Many others in the Washington district. Okay, so Karen Horn is on here somewhere, but why, just tell us, what is in the Barry TIF project? Because I think that went through when I wasn't here during my hiatus of finance. And what do you need and why do you need extension?
I did send in some written testimony before the town meeting break, but in a nutshell, Berry City has had a TIF district since it was approved back in 2012. The TIF district plan is predominantly, as a matter of fact, it's exclusively parking. At that point in time, that was the need. The couple of large private development projects that were interested in coming into the city had a need to make sure that there was plenty of parking for their employees, including a large building that now houses the Agency of Transportation. And so parking was our priority. We did a $2.2 million bond in 2014. Which we were able to leverage an additional $4 million worth of grants and other funding to do about $6 million worth of parking improvements in the downtown. And then we were getting ready to start working on the next phase of things, and COVID hit. And as many of you know, not only did things come to a screeching halt with COVID, but we sat back and reflected on what are the needs now in the city of Berry. There's been a significant change in people's work habits. Those 400 Agency of Transportation employees don't come into the office every day anymore. Many of them work remotely 3, 4, 5 days of the week. And that's made a big difference in what our parking needs are in the downtown. So we thought that it was our due diligence to look at what are the needs, what are the changes. We've been working with White & Burke, who you know well. They are a consultant firm that worked with us on the original TIF plan, and we've been working with them on answering exactly those questions. What are the needs? What are the changes in employee habits in the downtown area? And so we really feel that we need to complete that process so that we can move forward with TIF projects in support of private development projects that serve the community of today and tomorrow, as opposed to where we were 10 years ago. To be honest, our TIF plan calls for a $5 million parking garage, and we could go ahead and build one now because the plan says so. But there isn't a need for that. So it seems prudent to take the time to review the situation and move forward in the right direction.
Okay, so you need this extension in order to reassess because the new world of employment has changed what you need. All right.
Yeah, and the current deadline for incurring debt is the end of next March 31 of 2024. And that is not enough time when you start looking at having to go to the bond bank, having to go to the voters, having to go to the Economic Progress Council for a substantial change request. There isn't enough time to do that and do the due diligence.
Okay. Committee questions. Any thoughts about where you think you may be going? And-
Well, we've talked about a couple different, we have reached out to developers in the area. We've reached out to people who own properties in the area who have expressed some interest in some development projects. A lot of it is still in the planning phase, and so we're not able to share names and locations at this stage of the game. There's interest in some upper story housing, which would be great in the downtown. We can certainly use additional housing. And so that's one of the things we're looking at. We're looking at different types of mixes of retail space, office space. Again, the needs have changed. So we're trying to keep our doors open and see what's out there.
I was just wondering about public infrastructure, because that's usually what you use the TIF for.
Yeah.
You've got public water and sewer. I feel you're always envied your parking, but considering you might need some more. But what do you think you might need in the way of infrastructure?
The infrastructure needs are what we have talked about so far is some potential remediation of hazardous materials. That's been a big part of what we've had to do. The downtowns of these kinds of communities that had railroads running through them have unfortunately been a site for significant hazardous materials, and remediation is something that we can do with TIF, which would allow people to develop parcels. We've looked at some reconfiguration of parking, not expansion of parking, but reconfiguration of parking, and some road reconfiguration depending on whether a project moved forward and needed closer access parking or needed delivery space, different kinds of traffic flow. Those are the infrastructure kinds of things that we've been looking at.
Okay. Committee. Questions? Really?
Well, this is your neck of the woods, so I figured you have the greatest knowledge.
I ask
on the ground.
questions on White River Junction, so.
No, I know you ask questions on all of them.
Okay. Yes.
I mean, it's not as much, it's a good comment, but I think, we're kind of comparing and contrasting Berry and White River and Dutch Hartford at this point, because I really think they were the victims of timing, getting their renewal in 2019, and then the pandemic hit, and just, hearing that for you, this time during the pandemic was an opportunity to sort of reflect and set a slightly new course. I don't think we got to hear as much about if this changed direction for Hartford, but they just strike me as very similar, just the timing was slightly different for Hartford, and just, 2019 was a really rough time to try and reset the clock. But it's really nice to hear that you used the pandemic to really think about the future of work and the future of downtowns. So I value that a lot.
I forget where, I read an article that a lot of downtowns are being negatively impacted by the new remote work structures for exactly the same reasons, that there just aren't as many people in downtown as there used to be because they're working at home and they're only coming in 1 or 2 days a week. So it does free up parking, but it does take potential customers off your sidewalks. And I'm pleased to see that Barry, you're the first one that I've heard that has said we're working on that, so. Okay. Karen Horn, are you there? I saw her pop up, is she there?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Okay. There you are. Do you have testimony?
Sorry, I'm doing all the talking.
I'm here to lend our support to Barry City's request. We think it's wise, as it always is in Barry, to reevaluate what the needs are and where we're going in terms of development going into the future with fewer people downtown. I'm testifying from home today. I'm not in downtown Montpelier. We have, this is somewhat of an aside, but we have space for 50 employees, and on any given day, there's 3 to 7 there. So the world definitely has changed in that regard. And I laud Barry for taking that on and deciding how to move ahead. And clearly they're going to need the time to do that.
Okay, I'm gonna throw the ball back to you. Is the league even thinking about starting to talk with towns about the impact of this new employment structure and, you know, planning for it and how do you cope with it? Because there's been just a lot of change. We're good.
Well, right.
Had to drive in here this morning, but it's getting kind of strange talking to you because you keep popping on and off and the Barry's, yeah, there we go. Everybody's moving all over the place, and if you're sitting in certain rooms, Senator Brock is looking at you, but your voice is coming out from behind him.
Okay.
So it gets strange on occasion with all of the new Zoom and technology. So,
Well,
okay.
certainly we are talking to towns about how to keep your downtowns vibrant and what are the needs going forward. And I would say that plays directly into the housing legislation that Senator Ron Hinsdale's morning committee put together. But we're really looking at housing in downtowns and retail, commercial, office kinds of functions that support those new developments and getting people into the new vibrant communities, better places, all those kinds of programs that the Agency of Commerce and Community Development is putting together now. It's a long conversation.
We have not heard from them. We haven't heard in economic development either about plans for downtowns from ACCD.
We had like just the better places kind of update.
I don't remember that.
Chris Cochran. Oh, remember we kept seeing pictures of Bristol.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, that was housing. Yeah, that was mostly housing, I think.
He was still doing an update on like because their programs are all the downtowns.
This committee didn't like better
It's
places.
going to require mixed uses going forward.
Yeah, I think that's, okay, it's just good to know, because this is something that is coming up nationwide. I mean, there's just been a major change in employment practice, and that's having an impact on downtowns that relied to some degree on workers in the downtown area using their stores and, you know, using their parking. So it's a two-edged sword. Now we have lots of parking, but fewer shoppers. So, okay. All right. Anything else? Barry, anything else you want to tell us? Have you got a group that's working on this TIF, or is it basically, Carol, I keep getting your name. Are you heading this up? Are you the only one left standing?
No, that's not true, thankfully. We have a group of staff members and the mayor who have been working closely with White and Burke.
Something about planning.
Yep, and then we also have obviously been involving the council in the discussions, so they're involved too. But we do have a group of about 4 of us that have been working on this, really taking the deep dive into it.
Okay. And what is your prognosis? I'm just thinking, we've got another request for second extension from another town, and that is keeping other towns from getting in, and it's because there's ed fund money being held, or potential ed fund money. It's also impacting thoughts on mini TIFs. So I'm just, when do you think you'll have?
I am.
If there's anything.
I am really positive about where we're going. We've identified some very exciting possibilities. We're reaching out to people and having conversations. So I think that there is a really strong possibility that within the year we'll have identified the right projects and the right steps forward. There's just no way we would be able to get to all the phases by the end of next March, because, as I said, if we were to work under the current timeline that we're currently under, we would have to go to the voters, well, we would have to go to VEPC in the next 2 months, and there's just no way that we would be ready for that. But yeah.
How long of an extension have you requested?
2 years.
2 years, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Committee. No. Okay, thank you.
I'm into cutting the community some slack.
I know.
I know you know, but you seemed hurt that no one had a comment. So I wanted to.
I am the queen of TIFs. How did I get to be the villain? I just, there's just a lot of proposals for TIFs right now. Changes. It's the new forms, and we're looking at some pressures on the ed fund. On the other hand, we still have all the testing that's going on in the schools, and we don't have anywhere near enough money to pay for it. So I'm trying to find a balance here.
Sorry to say the same points previously. I'm much more supportive of this because it's not standing up a whole new TIF, and in the end, after the time runs out, the state will, the ed fund will benefit from the increased development that this will enable. So I'm fine with this extension.
The building that went up in Barry, that's privately owned, right? Just rented to the state?
Correct.
Okay. We didn't give you a TIF to put up a new tax exempt state building.
And we wouldn't want that.
No, okay. Senator McDonald. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
He doesn't like them.
I'm under a spell.
You hear the whisper that? Yeah, sorry.
Okay. All right, committee. These are bills we need to get out of here.
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
I move, I move we vote out S94 without amendment, right?
Yeah.
Favorably.
Okay, all right, now I'm told we don't need seconds in committee. Vote will tell us. Further discussion, it's been moved that we approve S94 favorably. That's a double something. Further discussion, if not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Okay, that is 610. And who would like to report that? Okay, this is the payment for the basketball. Okay, congratulations, Barry. Hopefully it'll make it through the other body and off the floor. We are scheduled to have Amarin in here on how other states are dealing with fertility-related services in health insurance. But she is tied up in another committee until 3:20. So,
I will just say Chair's meeting has a strong remote option. And I really don't want to be the cause that people have to wait around.
that's fine. No, I mean, today is, the power could go out again anytime, so, we can use this, we're, I guess, in recess until 3:15. Yes,
Point of information, what is the next procedure regarding Hartford? and their-
we have them on the agenda, I guess you weren't here, Thursday at 2:30, and Becky Wasserman will be here to go over that. Okay, they're just a little different because it is a second extension, and that's the first time we've done that. Okay.
Senator Cummings, I
Yes.
just want to thank you and the committee, and please feel free to reach out to us at any time if anybody has any questions.
Okay, we will, and good luck.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
much you're gonna come up with, but I'm glad you're taking it on.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, committee, we are in recess until 3:15.
Wow.
Then we will get Amarin. The child care bill will be coming to us. I hope. It is much pared back. I think there will be a family leave attached to it. Unfortunately, to do that, they have taken the money that is being used for the child tax credit, which means we need to cover the basic cost of child care. The bill, they're still working on numbers, but the bill looks like it'll be closer to 100 million than 279 million.
Is that over and above what the governor's budget includes? I think 56
I have
million.
not gotten it in. I think it is over and above what the governor has included. They're still working out numbers.
And of course, they're looking to us to figure out where to get the money from.
Yes. And we aren't gonna get it by taxing candy,
By,
taxing candy.
we're gonna
Unless,
get 100 million from tax and cans.
yeah, we are. So, there's a couple options, one big one. So, but that will probably be the bulk of our work. It's a very complicated bill, but they are still working. Jane Kitchell has been working very hard on it. And they have it, so it will go up somewhere between 500 and 600% of poverty. It'll be a scale, you get a, and there won't be a cliff. they're gonna scale it down, so that was the one thing this committee didn't want, was a cliff that you dropped off of.
I'm just trying to remember that before we had COVID and before we had problems with funding childcare, going back, say 2012, did we have a problem with childcare costs at that time?
We had a problem with childcare availability, yeah.
Well, what we did is we fixed it, and it seemed to me that when we fixed it, it got worse.
I don't know.
When we improved healthcare quality, quote unquote.
Oh, well, yes, we
That's
did,
where it
we
dropped
did a
off.
lot, we didn't, at least I didn't in this committee, I don't think we touched it. But there was a lot, the STARS program, it
Right,
was
yeah.
suggested that we do away with that. I guess they have decided not to do away with it.
But when we eliminated essentially all of the home, generally women-owned
Yep.
childcare services, we fixed it. And since then, it's been worse. That's when the shortages and cost increases and so on developed.
It's, yeah, the childcare, yes. We lost a major childcare provider in Montpelier who raised a lot of kids in this town because she was 50 years old and she wasn't going back to college, so she could direct a childcare program.
And then the question is, again, statistically, since we fixed it and made it so much better, have there been any material improvements that anybody can point to?
That's, that one I haven't seen yet. You take that to the committees of jurisdiction. But
Well,
they are,
when the committees of jurisdiction dump it on us to figure out how to pay for it.
then we can have.
It's a matter of
discussion
interest
as
to us,
what
I would
we're
think.
paying for. Yeah. And I will give them a heads up that they should be prepared to tell us that. So we will see where it goes.
I will just say, in Senate Economic Development, we'll have a preview of
That's
the
right. Tomorrow morning?
tomorrow morning. I think jointly with Health and Welfare, just because paid family leave would otherwise be our jurisdiction, but we're just doing that.
Yeah, because it's getting attached to, yeah.
So we have an hour on that tomorrow with Senator Kitchell and Damian.
At 9?
Unless, I do have to tell you, it might be 8:45, I don't know, there's a request for more time to testify for somebody else.
Okay.
I'll send you.
We'll see how the snow goes. It's starting back up, which the chief says it is going to, and the winds are coming up to 35 miles an hour. So many of us may not have electricity tonight.
Right.
Okay, so you've got a half hour. Go forth
That's a
and
good thing.
or not fast. And we can go off, we are in